Hey guys, Rebel Engine 95, recording live from your local county prison cell. It's been a while. I think it's been 3 weeks since my last upload. I normally don't like to wait that long, but, life gets in the way and whatnot, and waiting for them to release the next, the first episode of Season 10. I think they said they're in production of Season 10, but I don't think they gave a release date. Unless it happened, like, today and I didn't see it. But nonetheless, I'm gonna put something out there. If they do release something, it's gonna terribly affect the views of this video. But if you you guys should know by now that I don't really care about that. So this is one that I kind of came up with. I don't really want to. I didn't see it anywhere, and it really makes I really like this. So this is I think its name is Brago from Zatch Bell, and Heracles or Berserker from the Fate series, but mainly Fate Stay Night. This is so. First of all, if anyone remembers Zatch Bell, that's the first thing. Secondly, even after you remember Zatch Bell, do you realize Zatch Bell and Fate have the same exact plot? I don't know how no one said this before, or how I've never heard anyone say this before, but the Momotos or whatever they're called, I think, right, from Zatch Bell. I mean, they're not based on mythical, beings of fantasy or anything, but the Momotos are and somebody's gonna say I'm saying the wrong word, but I think that's what they're called, Momotos. They're creatures from another world that come in, and they have casters that have spell books that control them, and then they have a giant tournament to see who gets to be their leader. That's literally Fate, right? That's literally the Holy Grail Wars and having the Summoner and all that. It's literally the same thing. So I was basically looking for a Fate versus Zatch Bell matchup. Zatch up, if you will. And I couldn't really think of anything. And then I was like, wait a minute, isn't there a scruffy looking guy somewhere in there? And then I said, yeah. So that's how I came up with this. So let's start with Brago while I still remember his name. So Brago is the Momoto of what's her name? Sherry Belmont, I think. No relation to the House of Belmont, I assume. She's a rich aristocrat, and that's kind of a secondary theme here, that they're these big monsters that are, being controlled by these, rich, noble, girls. Yeah, Sherry is a rich aristocrat who, tried to take her own life and then became a caster, after being stopped from that. And her Momoto is like I said, Brago. And Brago is, he's the antagonist of the series, or the rival character of the series, where he helps out Zatch and everything, and his guy that I don't remember the name of. But he's competing. He's trying to be the best. And it's easy to see how he might, because he's fucking overpowered. I'm over a minute, right? Okay. He doesn't completely control, but his powers are centered around gravity. Right? He has his signature attack, which is Grace. Great. I don't know how it's. I didn't really watch the show, to be honest, but I remember it being on, and I forget how I don't know how it's pronounced, but yeah, it's a signature, which is just a concentrated ball of gravity energy, kind of. Right? And he has a lot of moves that are essentially a play on that, but he has a lot more up his arsenal. First of all, when I say moves that are a play on that, I mean really, really, really big versions of that. This guy can fire double spiral gravity, beams out. He can create cyclones of gravity energy. He can condense the gravity in one area. He can lighten the gravity in one area. He can create a giant ball of vacuum sucking energy that blows up when you make contact with it. He can create something like the size of a house to fire at you. He's capable of destroying a mountain. His powers of he's after discovering that his powers were linked to the rotation of the Earth, he discovered that he could slow down the rotation of the Earth. I mean, it's incredible what he's capable of doing. He's able to clear out entire forests. He's been able to, like I said, like crush buildings, crush mountains. Really just high-end, high-tier character, right? He's got superhuman strength and endurance. In addition to that, he's been able to like punch cars and stuff and send them flying. He doesn't usually resort to hand because with powers like his, why would you? But he is capable of doing that. Sherry, in her own right, is also semi-well trained in combat, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, but Brago's he is just kind of a monster. The one big downside to his abilities is that when he uses his more higher level abilities, he has to, like, it does take a physical toll on him, and if he uses enough of them in a row, then it will start, like, degrading at his actual body, and he'll, like, sustain physical harm from it. Basically gets a recoil. And since, due to how Fate works, we're gonna have to use, like, RPG terms here. And also, his other downside is that he requires Sherry to actually cast his high-level spells. He can't really do anything by himself. Aside from, punch cars and stuff. So yeah, very, very high-powered character here. Moving on to Berserker, or Heracles, but I'll just call him Berserker, because that's more or less how he's referred to in the show. Again, I'm not a huge Fate guy. I've had a few Fate characters on here before, but I'm not a huge Fate guy. I mean, like, I haven't really watched it, but I have a passing familiarity with it. I did have to do a lot of looking stuff up for this, I will let you know. So I know there's a lot of Fate fans, and there's a lot of Fate shows, and if I get something wrong, I just kind of want to glaze over it here. So Berserker is the what do they call them? Like noble spirits or something like that, right? He's the partner of Ilya, whose name is spelled weird, and who has a really German last name. But anyway, yeah. So she is she's not technically a child. She's an adult woman whose magic being released prematurely caused her to halt her aging. Yeah. But her family essentially really wanted to win the Holy Grail War. The Holy Grail War is when all of these guardian spirits, or whatever they're called, get together, and they and their, summoners all go looking for the Holy Grail and fighting each other and all that, and whoever ends up winning, is now the king of the world or some shit, I don't know. And, because of that, her family really wanted the notoriety of being able to, win that. So they cheated. They cheated, and they summoned Heracles, the noble spirit Heracles, too early. And Heracles is actually a very interesting. So I'm just gonna call them spirits. Very interesting spirit, because he's actually fittable. And there's classes in Fate, right? There's Archer, Lancer, there's different weapons classes and all that. He actually fits into every class except, I think, Mage it's called. He fits into everything except, like, the magic users, right? So he can excel and master pretty much anything. But they said, to hell with that, we want a big guy who kills things when we tell it to. So Ilya more so used what is known as his one of his noble phantasms, which is called what is it? Mad enhancement. That's what it's called, right? Used mad enhancement, which is an enhancement. It does increase all of his physical attributes, his speed, his strength, his durability, but it Yeah, it just makes him it just makes him an animal. It just makes him a beast. He's just an attack dog now. He has no sense of like conscious thought. He has no sense of like, sense of self or understanding. He's basically, yeah, he's just a dog on a leash. Really fucking big dog on a leash. And yeah, now he does retain all of his like, not necessarily training, but he does retain like a lot of muscle memory. He is a very capable fighter even without, his like conscious thought. It's just, he can't really tactically assess anything. He can't he just kind of obeys orders. Not initially, but he does obey orders now. Yeah, he's just a killer. And he's very good at it because he has some, quite frankly, bullshit abilities in the Fate universe. So he has shit, I went on my way to remember everyone's name, and now I can't remember the name of stuff. He has a passive ability, which I'm gonna remember after this video is recorded, and I'm gonna be, cursing myself. He has a passive ability that basically, it says that any A-class, anything less than an A-class attack can't hit him. Now, in Fate, everything's divided into classes. A-class is pretty high up there. For reference, I think I mentioned Excalibur in my Urza versus Saber video. That was able to destroy a section of a city. And I think that was either A or S class. I can't remember. It might have been S class. So A class is like pretty significant. So he's just unfazed by anything that's like a normal attack. You need to like pull out stops to kill this guy. And when I say kill, that would bring me to his second noble phantasm, which is what is it called? It's like 13 something. Anyway, point is he has 13 lives, essentially. 13 stocks, if you will. So yeah, he has essentially these 13 lives, and but they're more, like I said, they're more like stocks in a video game, whereas there is a set amount of damage he can take before one of these lives is depleted. And because there's a set amount of damage he can take, you can actually deplete multiple of his lives in one attack, which has been done by several characters. And the secondary part of that ability is that if he is killed, or if a life or lives are taken by an attack, he's just completely immune to that attack. I say that attack and not that style of attack, even though it's kind of referred to as style of attack, because, like, Saber has taken multiple lives of his on multiple occasions, and Saber really doesn't do much but just swing a sword at him. So the fact that it's a different attack, I think, kind of applies there. So I'm going to go ahead and say if it's not the exact same attack, it's still probably capable of taking his life. So yeah. So when you consider that only high-level attacks can even harm him in general, and the fact that he's, you have to kill him at least multiple times unless you have some planetary devastation level attack. Yeah, and you got a kind of just a tank, right? But yeah, and also, like, when I mention his strength, he's not just there taking hits. Like, he is capable of, he was Hercules before he became known as, well, he is Hercules, technically. Like, he is the god of strength, or he is the spirit that embodies the god of strength. So, he is strong enough to, like, lift giant boulders. He's strong enough to knock out people like Saber and people like Lancer and just knock them away completely. Like, he is a ridiculously strong character. But getting into the actual fight here, I think either character could win this. Like, this is a position where either character could win this fight. On one hand, I think that Brago is more than powerful enough to actually take all of the lives of Berserker. He would have to know not to use the same attack multiple times, which is kind of frustrating. And at the same time, I think Berserker, even though Brago is superhumanly strong in his own right, I think Berserker is definitely stronger and definitely capable of, like I said, just tanking a lot of things. So how do we get into who actually wins this? Because, like I said, I think it could go either way. Believe it or not, and this sounds very anime-ish, and this sounds like something Death Battle would say, the big difference here, I think, is their partners. Now, neither one is really capable of doing much without their partners. But the primary difference is that Brago and Sherry are an actual team. Like, by the end of the they squabbled a lot at the beginning, but by the end of the series, they're able to, like, pull off attacks in unison without talking to each other. Like, they're able to just use nonverbal hand signs to indicate, they're very well coordinated, and they have a lot of, like, respect and admiration for each other by the end of the series. They're a very high-functioning team. Like I said, Berserker and Ilya, I mean, even though they do there is some heartwarming moments, Ilya is kind of just there as a pool of mana, and Berserker's just a mad dog that she points and says, kill that. Like, they don't really team up much, they don't really communicate, because she can't really communicate with him because of the mad enhancement. She's, they're not really, they don't, mesh quite as well. And I think that's kind of the downfall. Plus, like I said, I mentioned before that Sherry is also trained in combat. She carries like a mace or something with her. Theoretically, if Brago and Berserker are going at it, what's to stop Sherry from just killing Ilya, and then Berserker loses a pool of mana that he can't really, And the other thing is, without mana, that this is a fundamental weakness as well. Without mana, Berserker will eventually not be able to exist in the same physical plane. Like, he won't be able to live in the regular world. So that is kind of a significant weakness as well. That's essentially, I don't want to say dying, but that would maybe count. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that's kind of the difference, because if Sherry can help Brago point out that, like, oh, that attack's not doing anything, switch it up. But don't hurt yourself too badly, like, you're deteriorating and all that, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I think Brago has the power output to do it. I think he has the power output to take multiple lives with some of his higher level attacks. So if he can just do that in a way that makes it so that he doesn't die in the process, but also takes all 13 lives, like, yeah, all of his attacks are gravity centered, but there is diversity amongst them. And like I said, as long as it's not like the same exact attack, I think he's probably fine. There might be something in Fate that says no, it's any attack of the same, but that just seems ridiculous and unbeatable, and also, like, kind of contradicts fights that have been in the series, so I'm going to assume it's not. But yeah, so I think that's kind of the determining factor. So with that, I think Brago and Cherry win this. It's kind of weird to say that, but I think that's how this goes down. But yeah, I'm really glad that I got this done. I've been meaning to for a few days, and I'm really glad that I picked a fight that's kind of more off the beaten path. But anyway, we're likely to hear something from Death Battle in a little bit. So if we do, I'll make something on it. If not, I'll try to make another video in the next week or so. Anyway. Purple 95. Yeah.